Somebody's in the middle of a cave.
Bonjour, bonsoir, everyone. Just gonna wait a few minutes.
Ah, je vois qu'il y a quelqu'un dans la Californie. Et il y a et Nick et Corey, vous êtes d'où?
Oh, c'est le Chauvet Cave dans la sud de France, je pense.
Ah. Et vous êtes au sud de la France maintenant?
Non.
No. And Nick, where are you now?
Je suis à Saint-Louis.
Saint-Louis. Donc, on a des personnes d'un peu partout.
Génial. Vous êtes dans le Missouri, en fait. Saint-Louis, c'est...
Dans le Missouri.
Dans le Missouri. Je connais très bien.
Oh, Nick n'est plus dans la cave. C'est dommage. Et Nick, Corey, vous êtes à Milwaukee?
Je suis dans Beloit actuellement.
Beloit. Très bien. Et Nick, comment est-ce que vous avez, how did you know about this talk today?
J'ai reçu un email.
Good. And I don't know.
Yes, Sarihe in California too, right?
Yeah, she just moved to California. Bonjour, Kitty. Kitty est venue parler. En fait, Kitty, c'était intéressant. Elle écrit des livres de cuisine marocaine.
Ah, c'est bien ça.
À San Diego.
À San Diego.
Okay, well, I'll keep an eye on the waiting room. We can get started.
So we welcome to the Alliance Française de Milwaukee's Zoom event tonight. And tonight we have the pleasure of having Pauline Mouhanna with us from the Washington, D.C. area, Bethesda, I believe. Pauline is a bilingual journalist who writes frequently in French and in English for Jeune Afrique, which is a French language Pan-African news magazine published in Paris, for L'Orient du Jour, a leading French language daily newspaper in Lebanon, and Inside Arabia, an online news magazine providing news and analysis of the Middle East and North Africa. Pauline was born and raised in Lebanon, lived and worked in Paris, and in 2011, she moved to the United States. And after living in Illinois, Georgia, and Tennessee, she now lives with her husband and 2 children in Washington, D.C. For more than 18 years, Pauline has written articles related to the Lebanese emigration history and the Diaspora news taking place in France and then in the US. She writes about the LGBT situation in Lebanon, the difficulties of women in the context of emigration, and the Lebanese war in July, August of 2006. Recently, she started covering the American relation with the Arab world and the American policy in the Middle East. Pauline also worked as a presenter in French of the news on Radio Liban. Pauline has a lot of different hats that she wears. And when I was Googling her name, I found some really interesting articles. You wrote about Afifa Karroum, Arab American trailblazer for women's rights. And Afifa Karroum lived in the late 1800s, early 1920s. And I just felt that her life sort of mirrored your own. She was the first Arab American woman journalist, editor, writer, and translator in the United States. After emigrating from a small town in Lebanon, she moved to the American Midwest and was a writer. You also wrote an article about the Mokarzel brothers' impressive legacy in Arab American press. So some of the first, one of the first and most influential long-running Arab American newspaper in the United States, and I believe they were also in the Midwest, or maybe.
Yeah, they actually were in the Midwest and also in New York, because at this time New York was the place where the Arab immigrants were, like, you know, trying to settle and be present. So yeah, but they were also in the Midwest.
Great. And then, and you've written many other articles, but those two just kind of popped out at me. And then most recently you published a novel, which came out in last year, 2020, in French. And in English, the title would be She Lived in Sandwich, Elle habitait à Sandwich. And the sort of synopsis of the story is Thérèse is Franco-Lebanese and lives in Sandwich, Illinois. She decides one day to slam the door without turning back. Now that she's 37 years old, she questions her decision to leave her home country and follow her husband to the United States. Her exile, her husband's career, and raising her children kept her busy for 10 years. Today, nostalgia pushes Thérèse to question all these choices for better or for worse. And then in addition to writing and being a journalist, you also taught at universities and several Alliances Françaises, including in Atlanta, in Nashville, and now at the Alliance Française of Washington, D.C. So I found that what your book, your articles, and your life sort of all kind of meshed together and was really very interesting. And this whole idea of the nostalgia of your home country, which we forget, and we talk so much about immigration and immigrants, and we forget how difficult it is sometimes to make this journey.
That's true.
Yeah.
The target, like, of the book was a little bit kind of, that started with the idea how can an immigrant that is really living in the United States and that miss his country very, very much, continue and contribute to where he is and where actually he's from. So it was like kind of, I was always with this dilemma between being here but being also over there, and your mind is here and your mind is there, and you're completely constantly trying to struggle and think about how you can contribute to the American society, but at the same time don't forget where you come from. And in my case particularly, it was like also the fact that I had my kids, I was alone, my parents passed away, and I was asking myself, how can we like raise someone when we're abroad, but at the same time really wanted to give him the best from our culture. So that started with my daughter. So I was really thinking about this the whole time. What exactly how should I raise her, and what should I give her from my culture? Because the whole time you ask yourself, what is good, what is bad? What should you keep from your culture, and how can you at the same time integrate, but don't forget where you come from? So that's kind of how the book started. And the book also takes place in the Midwest, and we started our life, my husband and I, in the Midwest. Before we were in Paris, so I think I wasn't really sure about how the things will be in the Midwest. But when you move from Paris, you go to a new place, you really don't know, and you have a really language barrier, which was my case. I really wasn't fluent at all in English. I would sometimes speak with a waiter in French, or sometimes some words in Arabic. So I felt completely lost. And so the book was also kind of like the answer to all those questions, where I the whole time was asking myself, should I only also continue to write in English? Should I really forget about French? Because French is a huge part of me, of who I am. And I didn't want to give up about my language. So that was also the target of my book, that is in French. So yes.
So you moved from Paris to Springfield, Illinois, which is really
Yeah.
a small town. I'm sure that there was a lot of difficulties. Do you think it was, how is it different than had you moved from Paris to Washington, D.C. directly?
Yeah,
For your
that's
family?
true. Yeah, you're right. I mean, for those, I have a lot of friends that moved directly from like Beirut, Lebanon to Washington D.C. or friends that moved from Paris to Washington directly. They don't have the experience that we have, because when you start your life in a small city and you're starting to to see the best of it, despite the fact that you feel very lost and you feel that you're very far from your country and you're very far from Europe. And people probably, they don't all of the time like care about things that you care about, which is completely normal. They're in the Midwest, they have their, like, they're already settled and they have their culture, their traditions, and you arrive there and you have your own traditions, your own customs, but you have also to settle and contribute. So the hardest thing was the cultural. It wasn't really a cultural clash. It was more how can you continue being yourself when you're so far from where you were? Because Paris is very different. Like, people will care about things that you care about, and also, besides, I'm Lebanese, so in the Midwest, not everyone is familiar with the Lebanese. So that was also the difference between being directly moving from Paris to Washington, because in Washington also the Lebanese immigration is bigger than in the Midwest, and people are more familiar about where you come from. So you'll feel that I don't want to say more welcoming, because this is not true. I feel that honestly, you can be welcomed in the United States everywhere. And that's something that I really believe in. I don't feel that in Washington you'll be more welcome. This is not the problem. The only thing is that you have more to raise awareness in the Midwest about who you are, and really try to explain more who you are. So in every occasion that you have, then you'll try to talk about where you come from, the languages, French, and all of this.
And what did you find the hardest about being a foreigner or being Lebanese in a small town in the Midwest?
The hardest was like people like really not being unaware of what is actually Lebanon anyway. Is it like, where is Lebanon located? And do you, I mean, in my case, in Lebanon, you have like Christians and Muslims, and you even had a small Jewish community. So people will tell me, where do you go? Why do you go to church? And I'm like, but I'm Lebanese, I'm Christian too. And we go to church also in Lebanon. So I think it was, the main problem was people not knowing at all who you are. And sometimes they'll think like you're Russian or you're why are you drinking alcohol? But I mean, I drink alcohol. So you have the whole time to explain more about yourself. And sometimes you don't really want to do it. It's like you're trying to explain who you are, despite the fact that you are in a foreign place already, which is hard for you. So you're trying to integrate, but in the same time you have to explain very frequently and very often who you are.
And I believe, I don't know if it's isn't there a small town called Lebanon in
Yeah.
Ohio? Yeah.
There are Lebanons everywhere, which is funny.
Right.
But people will know from my accent that I'm not from Lebanon, Ohio, because I wasn't fluent at all. So they'll think, oh, you're a foreigner, so you're Russian. And I mean, I don't really look Russian, but people will ask me, are you Russian? And I'm not tall. So I'm like, no, I'm not really Russian. And so they'll have a lot of ideas about like who you are, despite the fact that and the clash was also probably that you sometimes are convinced that where you come from, like Paris and Lebanon, people are very well cultivated. They're very maybe interested by cultural events. They want to know more, but it's not always the case. Like in some places in the Midwest, not in home in the Midwest, but I mean in some places. Where you know, like, which is completely normal. You're in a city of farmers, so people really care more about the practical things than maybe culturals or educationals.
Mhm. And I guess the big question that always comes up in our conversations is, how do you deal with food? You know, part
Yeah.
of, I'm sure Lebanese
Yeah.
culture, French culture depends on food, and it must be a little bit hard in Springfield, as well as some of the other Georgia and Tennessee, maybe a little bit less in the DC area. So how did you deal with, you know, raising your family in the culture that you wanted to raise them, and how did you recreate that?
Especially that I'm more an intellectual in her books than a cook. I'm unfortunately the bad Lebanese friend, because usually the Lebanese friends are those that cook so well that you just want to go to their place, knock on their door, and tell them, please speak about show me your Lebanese food. It's not really my case, so I was struggling more because I had to really try some dishes for my family, because they were important to me, but in the same time there were no ingredients that we really use, so you have to sometimes go to Peoria, like drive an hour to have your grocery and come back to your city. So yeah, that was a little bit more complicated than being in Paris, or even here. Like here you sometimes find some food more closer.
Mm-hmm. And I think there's a big Lebanese community in the Detroit area or Dearborn.
That's true. Yeah. So now the more and more, like, you have really a Lebanese community everywhere, but in Detroit and Dearborn, yeah, there is also a very big community.
Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of people are interested in your first novel, and maybe you can tell us in your novel, Elle habitait à Sandwich. I don't know if you want to tell us a little bit about that, and if it's possible to read an excerpt or two.
Yeah.
And then Erin, and explain where you can purchase the book for people.
So the book is actually, this is the cover. So you see, you don't really see Therese. You see any woman that is somewhere very far from her country, where you have, like, here kind of birds. So that's why I chose this cover, because I felt that it's kind of my story. It tells a little bit about the book. So for me, the choices of the cover was easy, because when I finally found this cover with my publisher, I was so happy. So about the story, so the book takes place in Sandwich, Illinois, not in Springfield, Illinois, but Sandwich and Springfield are not very far. I chose Sandwich in purpose because I felt that the title, like the title Sandwich, is interesting and attractive, and maybe like she is in a sandwich, but what we exactly mean by sandwich, she lived in Sandwich. So anyway, the story takes place in Sandwich, Illinois, and it's about Therese that is Franco-Lebanese, that decides one day, and that's how the book starts, to leave her home and her 4 kids and her husband, and she goes away and stay in a hotel for one night. And during this only one night, you will understand what Therese is going through. Like, why did she took the decision to go away, and think about what happens 10 years exactly after her emigration. So the idea was for me to try to also raise awareness about the Lebanese culture, the Francophone culture, sometimes the struggle that the women have when they are so far away from their country, but in the same time that are dealing with their new realities. And so every chapter is about one of the difficulties that a woman, I say woman, but I mean, I know that immigrants that are meant to will have place, I mean, we'll think also about the book. It's not only about women, because Thérèse has a husband, and her husband also is originally Lebanese, but they're living the immigration experience differently. And I wanted to show that, to demonstrate how sometimes people will have more difficulties to integrate, but other will have much easier. And so I tried as much as I can. It's not a journalistic article. There are no facts, but I try to raise awareness also about, like, you know, for instance, all the problems that we all are aware of, like the shooting. Like I have one chapter about shootings, and every time a new shooting happened in the United States, I go back and read my chapter, because that was the hardest thing that we had to deal off when we emigrate. Because when you emigrate, you say to yourself, well, now I'm in a safe country. I left my country where there are wars, there are instability, political instability, and you come back, you come here, and you're thinking, well, I'm so safe now. And then a shooting happened, and there is a chapter about the shooting and how Thérèse is experiencing all of that. And so this is the idea of the book. The book takes place in Sandwich, but is also a nostalgia about Lebanon, Beirut. It shows the cultural Lebanese, and also a huge part for Marseille, which is a city in the south of France. Also, there is also a chapter about Marseille. So it's really about Lebanon, France, and the United States.
Great.
Yes.
And it's interesting, at the Alliance Française of Milwaukee, I've been here for quite a while, as Kitty knows, but we often get requests for, not often, but periodically get requests for French-speaking therapists or psychiatrists, because often the woman who's coming with a French-speaking man is having trouble adapting. So I think that's a very common problem for women, especially when you have young kids. You didn't really, it was more of the husband's project to come, and you kind of follow along in it, and it gets really hard.
Exactly. I have like some friends that are psychiatrists. My husband is a doctor, so I have many of my friends that came here. They weren't married, like they're doing their really their experience here, and they're working, and their feelings is much different from someone that followed a man that had the project to come and work here. You have also to accept the idea that it wasn't your choice. You're coming here mainly because you want to raise your family and be with the person you love. So I mean, this is a different experience. You're right. So I completely understand the difficulties that they may have, especially at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Erin, you wanted to read one of the questions or the comments?
Sure, or if you'd like to read first, either way. We just had one question from Kitty that said, what took you to Springfield? Why not a larger town?
Yeah, okay. And this thing, well, it's actually, I'll answer your question, but I'll also have something that is funny, is that when we knew that we were coming to Springfield, when we were in Paris, we called the land owner, like the person that from whom we rent the apartment in Paris. And so I told him, like my husband now, he's going to do his residency in Springfield, Illinois, which is 3 hours from Chicago. And his answer was like, are you following him? Are you going to Springfield with him? And I told him, well, why are you doing this reaction? And he said, well, I went to Springfield while going to Chicago, and when I arrived there, I said to myself, well, I'm not sleeping one night in Springfield. I'll come back to Chicago. That was his experience. I'm like, would that be so bad to live in Springfield? 10 years later, I can tell you, no, not at all, honestly, because I mean, there are so many advantages that you're not aware of at the beginning. You take so much everything for granted. And so you don't realize the beauty of a city, or what you can do in a city when you're not like at the beginning, but so I don't know if I answered your question or not, or I went somewhere else.
Oops. Well, so do you want to read first, and then maybe I can unmute everyone and or read any other questions that come up in the chat?
So I'll do like usually what we do with the publisher. We start by the first page because we think, well, this may you will find it interesting, and if you want to continue with me, then that will be great. Alors, elle a claqué la porte, ne s'est pas retournée et a marché d'un pas décidé. Surtout, ne pas réaliser ce qu'il vient de se passer. Avancer pour pouvoir à un moment s'arrêter. Et ce centre-ville, finalement plus loin que ce qu'elle croyait. Enfin, ce petit bar qui ne paye pas de mine. Ce n'est pas le moment de faire ça difficile. Elle est entrée, s'est installée en face du barman et a commandé un café. Il aurait fallu quoi exactement pour qu'elle fasse cela? L'expression de son mari, c'est ton problème. Maintenant, elle tente de se remémorer comment tout s'est déclenché en elle. Et là, la tension monte. Un verre de vin devra l'aider. Elle a fait appel de nouveau au barman et commandé de l'alcool cette fois. Servie, elle a repensé à ce qui a été jeté à sa figure cet après-midi. C'est ton problème, il a dit. 3 mots, en rien de vraiment dramatique. En 10 ans de couple, elle a entendu, vécu et vu pire. Alors pourquoi aujourd'hui et pas avant? Qu'est-ce qui pousse une femme de 37 ans à agir ainsi? C'est peut-être lui, les enfants, la lettre de son grand-père ou tout simplement ce pays où elle n'a jamais eu le sentiment d'avoir une place. Welcome to America, land of true happiness. Bienvenue aux États-Unis, terre du vrai bonheur. Et oui, le bonheur, c'est ici. Le constat qu'elle fait s'accompagne d'une explosion de rire. Un rire perçu sans doute comme hystérique par le serveur. Il a dû se dire « Et voilà une Pakistanaise de plus, inhabituée à l'alcool, qui vient se saouler en Amérique. » De son regard, elle se soucie peu. C'est toujours cette phrase qui l'obsède. « C'est ton problème. » Il aurait dû continuer « Si les enfants sont désobéissants, si tu n'arrives pas à t'adapter, si tu es au fin fond du trou. » Est-ce qu'elle est réellement au fond du trou ou commence-t-elle enfin à voir le bout du tunnel? Une fois de plus, ce rire qui ne la quitte plus. Elle devine sa réaction lorsqu'il comprendra qu'elle est partie, que son portable est éteint, que sa voiture est dans le garage. Elle le voit déjà appeler ses proches. Ce sont surtout les discussions qu'elle causera qui la laissent ironique. Ils vont dire « Thérèse Martin est partie, sans ses enfants. Une originaire du Liban agit-elle ainsi? Qu'est-ce qui lui a pris? Est-elle devenue américaine? » Cette dernière supposition la confronte à la réalité. Cela fait 10 ans qu'elle est installée ici. D'autres auraient simplement dit, cela fait exactement 10 ans que je suis ici. Alors, j'ai pensé que si cela pourrait vous intéresser aussi, j'aimerais lire une petite partie qui est consacrée au shooting parce que c'est d'actualité et que ça va faire écho à l'actualité, à ce qu'on traverse nous tous en ce moment et qui est assez difficile. Donc, j'aimerais lire un petit paragraphe sur ce sujet. Thérèse s'en souvient si bien, de tout, et surtout de sa première Saint-Valentin de femme mariée. Elle a reçu 12 roses rouges qui s'associaient avec des cœurs en blanc en papier. Après les lui avoir remis, son époux s'est approché d'elle pour lui faire un doux baiser. Séduite par le geste, elle a pris un vrai plaisir à toucher les fleurs en frottant sa bague de mariage contre les métals. Elle a par la suite déposé l'arrangement sur une table. Surtout pour tourner le dos au portrait de Steven Kazimazek qui passait sans doute à la télé. Après avoir réussi à négliger le tueur, elle a sursauté quand David s'est avancé de nouveau vers elle. Alors, je tiens à dire que Stephen Kazmierzak is actually a shooter in Chicago. So that's a true event that happened. Et donc, those facts are true. Il a exposé son besoin fort, son besoin de s'acheter une arme. La catastrophe causée par le jeune Kamisma constituait le parfait alibi pour lui. Il disait qu'une arme à feu pourrait les protéger. Et laisse-moi te protéger, Thérèse, produit l'effet inverse. La jeune femme sentit une frousse la gagner, ses jambes s'affaiblir encore plus. Tu ne peux pas être sérieux. Une arme chez nous dans notre maison, elle va hanter mes nuits, a-t-elle dit. Alors, le mari de Thérèse qui lui dit « J'attends quoi exactement pour me procurer une arme et vous protéger ?» La longue pause. Nous détenons plus de la moitié des armes à feu existant dans le monde entier. 310 millions sont disponibles maintenant sur notre marché. Que tu le veuilles ou non, les dépressifs, les drogués et les fous courent dans la rue attendant le moment idéal pour les utiliser. Alors, en l'écoutant sortir ces chiffres et ces analyses, Thérèse a réalisé qu'elle n'est plus choquée. Elle l'a compris, les tueries de masse font clairement partie intégrante de la culture américaine. Elles sont aussi populaires que les tartes aux pommes et le baseball.
Et Pauline, do you mind just doing a quick summary of what you just did? Because there's a couple of people who might have had more trouble following.
Yes, sure. Sorry. Alors, should I do for the story, because I have for the story? Is it this?
Yeah, maybe quickly the story and then why you chose those excerpts.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Can you give me 1 second?
Sure.
Yes. 1 second. Okay.
I can tell you have a lot of screens.
Okay, so this is the story first. Thérèse, Franco-Lebanese, lives in Sandwich, Illinois. She decides one night to slam the door without returning back. Now that she is 70 years old, she questions her choices, leaving her home country and following her husband to the United States. Her exile, her husband's career, and the establishing of her own family kept her busy during 10 years. Today, her nostalgia pushes the woman to question all those choices, for better or for worse. The editor's opinion in France is the wave of nostalgia that characterizes the serious and tender novel shows a beautiful portrait of a woman struggling to achieve a painful but also necessary independence. And this is the part that I just read. She closed the door, didn't look back, and walked firmly. In her mind, one fixed idea. Don't realize what just happened. She walked faster, hoping to find a place to stop. She arrived downtown. That was much harder than expected at a small pub that looked so modest. Well, that wasn't the time to be demanding. She went inside, sat in front of the barman, and ordered a coffee. What exactly made her do that? What is her husband's word? Was it her husband's word? It's your problem. Now that she remembers how everything started in her, she felt a tension increasing. A glass of wine should be helpful. She called the barman and ordered the alcohol. She thought again about this sentence heard this afternoon. It's your problem, he said. Only few words. In them, nothing so dramatic. In 10 years, she had heard, lived, and listened to so many worse things. So why today and not before? What makes a 37-year-old woman act this way? It's maybe him, the kids, the grandfather letter, or maybe this country where she never felt she had a place. Bienvenue aux États-Unis, terre de vrai bonheur. Welcome to America, land of true happiness. Oh yes, happiness is right over there. This idea makes her explode laughing. When the server saw her, he gave her a look as if he considers her hysterical. He probably said to himself, "Look at this Pakistani, unused to drinking, becoming drunk in the United States. She doesn't really care about his look." It is always this sentence that keeps coming back. "It's your problem," he said. He should have continued, "If the kids are misbehaving, if you're not able to adapt to this country, if you reach the end of the rope." Had she really hit the bottom, or is she finally starting to see herself clearly?
Great.
Thank you. We have a couple of questions in the chat, and then I could ask everybody to unmute if they have more. Corey's asking, how hard was it adjusting to a new language?
The good thing about English is that it's maybe easier than, I can't really say easier than French because I was born and raised in French. So maybe for an American learning, and I can see it with my student, he'll consider French so difficult. But for me, it was especially the accent and the confidence, because when you're speaking a language, it's like you need especially the confidence to really be, to hope one day to become fluent. And I was really hoping from the beginning that I won't have a language like language barrier in the future. And now today, 10 years later, I'm at least proud about this. Like I'm more comfortable speaking in English. So yeah, but it was a journey. Yeah, it was hard at the beginning.
And Val was asking, did you visit the Abraham Lincoln National Museum in Springfield?
Yes, I do. And I know, and I still have friends in Springfield, and my kids are born in Springfield. And so, yeah, we come back. We don't come back as often as we want, but we come back. For me, it's home too. I mean, yeah, it's home. I'm very proud that on their American citizenship, they have Springfield. That's where they're born, like my kids. And I'm so proud of this.
I'm just still fascinated by Afifa Karroum.
Yeah.
And how you came across her story, and you know what motivated you to write about her.
That's true. She really touched me because we have so many things in common. Actually, she's originally from a village that is not very far from my own village too. And in Lebanon, like near the Mediterranean Sea. So I had a lot of affection for Afifa Karroum. While writing this paper, I was so emotional. It took me a while to finish it, but I wanted to make sure that everyone knows who is Afifa Karroum. Afifa lived something that is different from me. She unfortunately she couldn't have kids, and so, but for her writings were her kids. So she was completely an intellectual that is like unbelievable. She was the first journalist ever that wrote in Arabic, and she was strong. She was traveling without her husband, and she made her career. So I mean, yeah, Afifa Karroum is amazing. I agree.
I'm a little bit confused because did you actually live in Sandwich, Illinois, or your character?
No, my character. I lived in Springfield.
Oh, okay. Illinois. Okay, that's what I thought, because there is a Sandwich, Illinois. I have been there, and I have a girlfriend. Oh, you didn't know that? I have a girlfriend that lives in Sandwich, Illinois.
Oh, I know. And one day I tried, and to be honest, I tried to be in touch with them. My dream will be to go to a festival. Like there is the Sandwich Festival that is very known in during summertime. And before the COVID, I was hoping that maybe, well, when I finish my book and the book isn't Sandwich, I would love Therese to come back, even if it's a novel, and even if it's not new, and even if it was in French. I wanted only to meet some people living in Sandwich, Illinois.
Oh my gosh. Well, the first time I was in Sandwich, Illinois, I was a teenager. My grandfather immigrated from Norway, And we had a big family reunion in Sandwich, Illinois. This would have been in the 70s. So that was the first time and actually I guess only time I was in Sandwich. But now I have a girlfriend that lives there. And it's a very, very small town.
I know.
Really, really small town.
Yeah, I know. It's a very small town, but it's like, for me, it was so attractive, despite like sometimes you dream about those places and well, people will say, why are you so obsessed with this place that you didn't even see? But you feel that they touch you and they come sometimes to you. Like I was working in the library and Sandwich came to me and I was thinking, well, what city exactly where the book should take place? It definitely won't be in Springfield, won't be in a big city because this is not like the main target of the book. But then finally, when I saw Sandwich, I was like, that's it. That's
Yes.
it. I was waiting for Sandwich finally, and I found Sandwich. So yeah.
And then I attended Illinois College in Jacksonville, Illinois. So I've been to Springfield numerous times and have numerous friends that live there. And I can see why you would like Illinois. There really is, it's bigger and it's more, I would say, a mix of different people because of the politics, that being the capital, of the state. And a lot of colleges around there. Jacksonville is just 40 minutes west. And when the Abraham Lincoln Museum went up, that was a big deal. And it's a wonderful museum. If you've never been there, it is worth it. I've been there 3 times and every time I go, I learn something new.
And even like the downtown of Springfield is beautiful. Like the capital, I mean, it has a huge cliche. It's really beautiful. Like at the beginning, we used to, with my husband, when we just arrived to Springfield, I do remember myself almost going every day and taking picture as if the city going to change. It's like we're going to live here. Why do you take so many pictures? And I'm like, look at me, I'm in Springfield. Like it's so beautiful. Because I wanted also in my mind, there were this Parisian guy who thought, well, wow, that's nothing, Springfield. And I wanted to show him, well, you're so far from reality, actually.
Right.
So
Right.
I think I had this in my mind too.
Are you working on some articles now or another book?
Yeah, I just actually, the book, honestly, I have a very good friend, Nancy, who's also a Midwestern from Iowa. She wanted to come and join us tonight, but I think she was late, or anyway, she's helping me in trying to translate the book in English. Now, I'm not a writer in English and I do know my weaknesses, but she is, and she's part of a writing group. So, I mean, I'm hoping that really I can translate my work to English, because I know that a lot of Lebanese people will love to know more about it, and maybe Francophone community like that will be interested. So that will be the new book, only like trying to give as much as I can to Sandwich and to Therese. But for the article, I just did the article about Philip Hette, who's the first ever Arab historian who started all those university programs, language programs. Like he started in many different universities, and because of him, all those languages programs were developed in the United States.
So you've taught at several Alliances Françaises in the US.
Yes.
And also, I think also in universities. Is this something you enjoy, or?
Oh, that's something that I love. I actually thought at the beginning, when we moved from Paris, in the University of Illinois, Springfield, before almost 2 years. It was a good experience, great experience. And then I worked in many Alliances Françaises. I love like Alliance Française in general, because I feel this is where all Francophone, big or small community can meet. And I love teaching. So for me, it's like it's clear that it was very important to continue with Alliance Française anywhere it can be, like in Nashville, in Atlanta, now in Washington, D.C. And so, and there is also a very, like you see the more and more students interested to learn more about, you know, French, or even understanding more the Francophone culture.
Mhm.
So yeah, I truly enjoy teaching. One of my really best classes were the Middle Eastern literature, la littérature au Moyen-Orient. I loved this class, and I had a good group, and I loved it. We just finished recently the class, like 2 months or 3 months ago.
Fantastic. And then I wanted to talk a little bit more about what you're doing in journalism. So you're writing for Jeune Afrique, L'Orient, Le Jour, and Inside Arabia. Do you continue writing for them? Does each newspaper have sort of a different, or do you have a different role for the different papers?
Yeah.
What are the projects that you're working on with them?
Jeune Afrique is actually mainly, so Inside Arabia, it's more cultural and really more about, like in Afifa's Karam article and Democracy, it's about the immigration, the Arab immigration in the United States, their contribution to the US. For Jeune Afrique, it's different. It's really politics. It's how, like, you know, before Biden was elected, all those, like the election, how the African countries are going to deal with the new administration, how the new administration is going to have an impact on what is happening in Africa. So, I mean, this is different, yeah. Jeune Afrique, it's more about the politics and the policy between the United States and the African countries, North African countries, so and like the whole region. And L'Orient, Le Jour, it's more about the Lebanese community living in the United States, so about like the contributions of the diaspora.
And so what is a diaspora, a Lebanese diaspora in the United States? I assume it's not a huge country, but they seem to have a lot of people in the United States.
Yeah, it's actually an old one. So it started around like 1890, like this time. And a lot of vagues, like vagues d'immigration, were very like bigger and huge than during different periods of times. So the Lebanese tend to be integrated. And so for the second generation, they're already like, I don't want to say giving up on their language, but I mean like really only being monolinguist, only speaking mainly English. But they have their festival, they have their cultural organizations. Everywhere you'll find them, mainly in cities like Michigan, like in states like Michigan, Illinois too, like in Ito. I don't know if you know this, the Ito, that is a small, an hour from Springfield. You don't, Ito. It's like, this is how you write it. Ito. This is a small city that is not very far from Springfield, but it's almost 80% of Lebanese living in it, in Illinois, and in St. Louis too, because I knew that Nick is actually in Missouri. In St. Louis too, there is a Lebanese community, and in DC. So they're almost everywhere.
And you seem to be focusing quite a bit on the struggle of women, and you say the struggle of women in the context of immigration, but do you also talk about the situation of women in Lebanon, or?
Yeah, that is like, I really to try to emphasize more on what is happening here, because of the fact that I'm a journalist, and I really believe that if you want to cover the event clearly, really, you have to be over there. I mean, I'm definitely in contact with my colleagues in Lebanon, and I follow what is happening, but I can't really say that I cover, because I'm not in Lebanon. It has been like, it's been 10 years that I'm far away. So it's more covering what is happening within the United States, particularly with the Lebanese diaspora or the Arab diaspora, than the situation of women. But I have many friends, and I had one of them that may come to one of our classes to explain what is happening exactly in the women's situation.
And then you also write about the LGBT situation in Lebanon.
Yeah, I wrote it actually. That was, and it's quite like the article that one of the likes that I liked the most, because I was very surprised. And I felt that I didn't know at all that there is a LGBT community. And I think very rare were people that knew there is a LGBT community living in Lebanon, and it's very organized. And in the Middle East, Lebanon and Israel are the only countries that have I'll say a reasonable community that is strong, that have a organization, that try to, as much as they can, to respect, to try to change the laws that are against them. And so, and in Lebanon, they're really they're very organized. So that was the thing that was surprising. I think that people weren't aware that the LGBT community already exists in Lebanon, and it is organized.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, you find sometimes a woman that is all voilée, like putting, how do you say it in English?
Veil?
Yes, yeah, and is actually a lesbian. So it was interesting.
So that, yeah, that those are things for us that are hard to understand, that you can wear a veil, but
even for me, being born and raised and knowing that people may be veil, like put this, but in the same time be attracted to women, this is completely normal. But in the same time, I completely understand the reaction, because even over there, there is surprise, but those people exist too, and there is a LGBT community in Lebanon.
Interesting.
Great. Well, I have last call for questions or comments. And if you could tell us, Pauline, one more time where the best place to get your book is. I put the link, but.
Thank you. So the book is actually, what is good about Amazon, I'm not promoting Amazon, but the good thing is, the second when I understood that the book is on Amazon, so it's easy, it's like Amazon Prime. So for now it's in French. Let's hope it will be in English one day. And so, yeah, so it's on Amazon. It is in a library, in a bookstore, but in Washington, D.C. So
it's at the Alliance Française de Milwaukee's library as well.
Oh, I'll tend to take a picture when I come to Milwaukee with the book in Alliance Française Milwaukee. I love that. Oh, so are you reading it, Anne?
Aaron and I are sharing it. When Aaron's done, I'll read it. So.
Okay. So Aaron, are you thinking it's hard? It's like are you comfortable reading?
Yeah,
it?
No, I think it was actually, I don't really know what level reader I am, but I didn't have to look up too much, which is always really, really nice, because it's really hard to read, to get discouraged quickly or tired in another language if you have to have a dictionary all the time.
So Aaron,
I got questions before we go too.
Oui, bien sûr.
3 questions. So St. Louis is 2 hours from Springfield.
Less than that. It's 1 hour and 45 minutes.
So you've been here?
Yeah.
Have you been to the Alliance Française?
I even wrote an article about St. Louis.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Have you been to the Alliance Française here?
No. I had a friend that worked in Alliance Française St. Louis. That was a long time ago, maybe.
Because I don't remember hearing of you until now, so.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know. I know that Alliance Française is in St. Louis too, but I didn't go there directly. No.
Okay, and then Therese, is that you or is that somebody else?
Therese is me and so many other women. That's what I tend to say, and that's what I truly believe. It's me, any Francophone or any international or anyone arriving to the United States and struggling at the beginning and trying to live like abroad from their country. So I think that it's me, Anne, Erin, Val, Liz, and maybe even you, Nick. I don't know. You'll tell
And
me
then,
if you need it.
and then another question. So I know about Janiro and Brigitte Gabrielle. Are you aware of them?
About, sorry, I'm aware about.
Lebanese women
Oh, Lebanese
that
women.
that are in the news.
Yeah, which
Janine Pirro and Brigitte Gabrielle.
yeah, Bridget Gabriel. Yeah. I
And
even
Janine Pirro.
So
alors I know
can you either confirm their story or refute their story?
alors Brigitte Brigitte, I mean, I think that I can't really say that I can't really answer this question, because I truly believe that in facts and in reading again their stories, I forgot. So I do remember Brigitte point of view. I feel that she was a little bit more I like I don't want to say no, there's no word for un peu extreme. It's not extreme, but I mean she really tends to she lived the drama, I think. And so her condition of leaving country, Lebanon, was different from me. And the other person, I don't know her story and I don't remember. Comment s'appelle? What is the name of the other person?
Janine Pirro
Jenny.
from Fox News.
Yeah, she's
Oh,
Janine Pirro. She's on SNL a lot. She's not on SNL. SNL mocks her quite a bit.
oh, okay.
I
No, I
imagine.
didn't know. And she says that I mean, she's known to be originally Lebanese, right?
That's what I heard her say, so I had to believe her.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Mhm. I think I was in the same room with Brigitte Gabrielle, but she escaped before I find her, catch her.
Yeah, that's true. And she came to the United States like maybe almost 40 years ago, right?
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, I think somebody bombed her house in Lebanon or something
Yeah,
like
she
that.
lived a really traumatism. Like she left with
Yeah, she was.
yeah,
I can't remember how she lived, and yeah, so
yeah, her story is a little bit hard, I mean.
but you're not familiar with any stories like that?
Like I definitely heard some stories that are like that, but they're not in like they're not the one of a journalist. Like you have some many refugees that arrived, or many that had to leave their country after the war. So yeah, there are very like there is a huge community that had to leave during the war.
Mm-hmm. So how'd you escape? How come you don't have that story?
Because actually, when I left Lebanon directly to France, during that period of time, the situation was a little bit more stable than than after the war. For their stories, like Brigitte, it was during the war, so it's a little bit different. I'm the generation after her.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions?
Yeah, I have a question, if I may.
Certainly.
Comment votre vie sont touchées par la pandémie maintenant?
Oui, c'est une bonne question, ça. C'est une vie complètement différente. It's very different. On s'adapte. Maintenant, everything is on Zoom. Now we work from home. Now we just like very recently, my kids came back to school. So we had a lot of adjustment to do to our new life. And I think at the beginning it was very hard, because I just had my book released, and I wanted to go on tours and go like back to some states, but I couldn't do that because everyone was so busy with something else. So yeah, at the beginning it was very hard, but now I mean, things are going back a little bit to normal, and I'm hoping that like during the next few months it will get better and better. That's what I'm hoping.
Val has a question.
Have family still in Lebanon?
Yeah, I have my brother and sister, my in-laws, they're all in Lebanon.
They are. So they were there then for the recent explosion.
They were in for the next expo. Yeah.
Okay. Were they near it? Did they feel it?
Yeah, my sister really felt it because it was in Beirut and it wasn't far from her. And so what is happening now in Lebanon needs another Zoom, because we are in the hardest political, economical, cultural situation that the country ever known. I think that Afifa Karam, if she comes now to Lebanon, she will start crying from now to the end of her life. It has been so difficult, and the COVID didn't help at all, like the what is happening now. So there's still a lot of like you have to keep the hope, but things are not normal at all now. No, things are not normal at all. I mean, my family is like if you see what is happening economically, it's like the dollar used to be $1 used to be 1,500 lira, like Lebanese. Now $1 is 20,000 Lebanese. It's like it's crazy. Like, yes, economically it has been crazy. So yeah, I think that will deserve another Zoom.
Oh my
That's
gosh.
how much it's hard. And yeah.
And well, I have a question. How do I don't know how many, you have 2 children?
Yes, I have a boy and a girl.
And how old are they?
So I have Yasmina, who is 8 years old, and I have my son who's turning 7 on April 29th. George is, yeah.
And do they feel Lebanese, American, French? What do they feel they are?
I'm very proud of them. They're all this. Like, they're Lebanese, they're American, they're like completely American, and I emphasize on that because it's very important to me to understand that they're American, they're Lebanese, they're really Lebanese. I try as much as I can to show them and demonstrate and emphasize on the Lebanese beauty culture, because we really we have many we had many contributions throughout the history to the world, and they need to know about it. And they're Francophone. They're completely Francophone. They love French. They speak French fluently. So they're all of this, and they're learning Arabic. So I'm very proud because this is what I wanted to be. And I'm so proud of them because they adjusted to who they are.
Fantastic. And do they want to be writers? Or do they...
Yeah, my daughter is great in writing. So she loves to write. She says that sometimes that she wants to do a book. So I'll tell her, yeah, wait. I want her also to be very comfortable orally. So I tell her, like, this is important too, because she writes more than she speaks. So I was like, please say it to me, not only write it to me. So yeah, but she wants to write. My son is more pragmatic and oral than really a writing person.
And do you speak all the languages at home, or just French?
Yes, we speak French, Arabic, and English, but rarely English with them. It's like more French and Arabic, because that's the way they took this, like they pick up on the language. Otherwise, I know they'll speak with me in English and they'll start speaking with them in English, and that's it. So I lie to them. I tell them I really don't speak English. How do you go to the grocery store?
Right.
How do you do conferences on Zoom? But yeah, that's the only way. So now they know it's a strategy to keep up on the language, to continue speaking the language.
That's great. Yeah. It looks like Sabihe is with us. Can you hear us, Sabihe?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yes, I
Sabihe,
do.
and you're from you're of Iranian descent, I think, Sabihe, right?
Correct. I was born and raised in Iran. And I somehow I understand what Pauline is telling us. And I want to congratulate her to be brave enough to start writing what goes on or speak about it.
Thank you, Sabiha. Iran has a very important part in my heart, because I had my project in the university about Iran, and I wrote like part of Teresa's story. Also, it's about like how her mom looks like the wife of the Shah for a certain period of time. So yeah, we have many similarities in our culture.
Yes. Unfortunately, we are all going through depths of most difficult life,
Yeah.
and it is tortured. People are tortured, and that's the way it is. And the confusion that this writer, this character of you have at present time, it is dilemma that as we get older becomes stronger.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
then we have to resign to decision we made as a young person and accepted that now we are a part of the culture and thrive in this culture and forget what could have been if we wouldn't move on. I am personally happy I came for personal reason. The boys, I have two sons. They are older people, of course. And for them, Iran government did not accept them as their citizen, because we usually apply and get dual citizenship. But Iran did not accept them as their citizen. And so I had no choice. The older one has been in Iran once, younger one even has not been in Iran. So I made it straightforward for them, and I said that you are American, be proud of your country, respect your flag, and you have a Iranian heritage, but enjoy your country. So they are a straightforward American. And that's just fine. They would never be able to go and function in Iran. So at least let them enjoy their lives here.
I agree. Completely agree. I completely agree with you. Yes. And for me, it's like when they contribute to the American society, when they're comfortable here, when they show that as a best, like the good example, they're giving the best for their new culture and also specifically for the culture of their parents, because they make us so proud that
yes, I see. Yeah, yes, correct. I agree with you. It is. I see in my own countrymen that they try their best to raise Iranian child in United States, and I think that is totally unfair.
Yeah.
If you like the Iran so much, you could go back and raise your children in Iran. If you are living here, set them free, let them choose.
I agree.
And enjoy your discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sabiha.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me come and join the Zoom and see you after a long time. I miss you guys.
Sabiha just moved from Milwaukee to California. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much. Hopefully, maybe we can do another Zoom about Lebanon. That would be fascinating.
Yeah. Oh. And everybody pick up the book. It's
thank you.
Very interesting and a great read.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Erin, for organizing it, Anne for believing and doing it, Corey for being here, Nick, Val, Sabiha, Christopher, Andrew, Genevieve, Liz. Thank you for doing the effort to stay with us for I know sometimes with Zoom it's so hard. So I'm really grateful for everyone to be here. Thank you so much for receiving me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Merci, and say hi to Melissa.
I'm seeing her on Monday, so I'll
Great.
say hi on Monday. Okay. Au revoir. tout le monde.
Alliance. Merci.
Au revoir.
Au revoir, Rocky. Au revoir.
Bye bye. Au revoir.
Au revoir.